Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Untold. This is the show where we have brilliant people in all kind of fields. Of course, I'm your host Abdullah AlHendyani. I'm joined by my colleague
Lujain AlAtheri, and today we have a very interesting guest who specializes in all forms of martial arts,
Yeah.
Abdullah AlFraij.
Yeah, and honestly, he's a Kujikumbu, and I believe he's going to correct us on that because we've tried to say that word
I keep
so many
saying it
times.
wrong. I don't know how you're meant to say it, as well as Sistema and MMA.
MMA.
I didn't even know there were so many different types of martial arts.
Yeah, and honestly, the thing that I love whenever we bring a martial artist on the program is because martial arts, to me personally, is a very integral, kind of sports. And I do put it in sports because I think it's as much of a physical activity as it is a mental activity when it comes, opposed to regular sports. And I am so, happy whenever we have guests in this kind of field.
I agree. I think it's sometimes even more intense than regular sports because it covers physical activity as well as a lot of mental stuff and
Yeah.
overcoming like personal fears or boundaries, because a lot of the time I personally would be too afraid to do these kind of things for the fear of getting hurt.
Yeah, and honestly, I do hope we can cover a lot of the areas that relates to the mental aspects of martial arts because I think that's something that not a lot of people know about. And with that being said, we are going to go on a very quick break and we'll come right back after this one. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with Abdullah AlFraij, who is a multi-talented martial artist. So first, I want to welcome you on The Untold.
Thank you for having me.
Abdullah, it's wonderful to have you. And your career consists of so many different types of disciplines: Sistema, MMA, and Kujenkumbo. Could I say it right?
Kajikumbu.
Kajikumbo. Before we get into how your journey in martial arts began, could you explain to us the differences between these types of martial arts?
Of course, martial arts in general are it's between two kind of martial arts. There is the sports martial arts, as if MMA or boxing, kickboxing, even sometimes of karate. But there is another type of martial arts which is self-defense martial arts or military martial arts. These types of martial arts are different type of training, and even different type of system. Let's say working with this martial art. Let's talk first of all about the sports. It's about winning, it's about points, it's about having better advantage. But the self-defense martial arts, it's about, let's say, survival. It's all about, let's say, getting back home safely. So there is a different type of training for both martial arts.
And so how did your journey begin? Because, we've gone through your description and mashallah, Sistema and Kujikumbu, and you're also teaching martial arts. But how did you begin as a student in this whole journey?
Actually, it was a coincidence.
Oh,
I was in a Quran academy for
Mashallah.
reciting, and there was every Friday there was a seminar for a specific subject. Let's say, sometimes let's say math, science, sometimes taking out for a field trip. One of these times there was a seminar for martial arts, and it was my coach, and he's still my coach, Mr. Dakhil al-Dakhil.
mashallah.
The first time I experienced the martial arts with him, I saw how he was working with me and defending himself without using his power. He was just using, let's say, the techniques, the way of moving at the right place or standing at the right place, and knowing how to use my pressure points to defend himself without using his power. From there, I thought that that's something I would like to learn.
That's so cool. So, what drew you to the philosophy of martial arts other than the techniques? Especially since you mentioned like there are so many different types of martial arts, and I personally had not heard of Kujenkubo. I don't think I'm gonna know how to say it right. Kajikumbo and Sistema. MMA I'd heard of because one of my friends does it and she loves it. It helps her get out a lot of emotions and other things. But is there like a philosophy you feel that goes behind these sports?
Of course, every sport has its own system or philosophy, as you said. But for me, what I like about martial arts in general, that every martial art has a specific thing to study. For example, there is some grappling martial arts, there is striking martial arts, There is like MMA, it's all together, it's a struggle. And there is the self-defense, which has no rules, which has no limits. It can be more than one attacker, you can be on the ground, there is maybe a weapon working against you. So what I like about them is how every martial art can give you one specific thing to teach you. And when you learn all of these types of martial arts, you can, let's say, control the situation in such a way that you're relaxed without using a lot of power, because you're understanding how it's working.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. What do you think, Abdullah?
It is. And you know, the really fascinating thing about this is that I also tried to get into martial arts.
Oh, really?
At one point in my life, I tried to go into judo classes.
Okay.
And then when the instructor flipped me, you know, one of those moves, I was like, this is not for me. And then 2 years later, I went to boxing classes as well. And when we first got into the ring, you know, I got beat up as well. I was like, okay, this is not for me. I'm just going to watch martial arts. So whenever we have a person who actually followed that and pursued it, I'm really, you know, jealous and admirable of such a, you know, kind of pursuits. And I do want to ask you about, you know, the misconceptions that people have on martial arts, because a lot of people think it's just about fighting. But you elaborated that it has two kind of ways, right? There's the point, you know, fighting, and then there's also self-defense. So what are the misconceptions about fighting?
First of all, I would like to tell you that if you lost, it's supposed to know that. Why I ask myself when I go to, or let's say, why do I go to other martial arts? If I'm, for example, good in MMA, why would I get out of MMA and go to, for example, a specific boxing match, or only for pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and only go to a specific way of fighting?
Yeah.
Because every specific way can let me know, for example, why are boxers, let's say, jumping around with their movement? Why the judo martial artist doesn't jump around? They're always sticking on the ground, keeping their foot on the ground. The way of transferring their weight and the way of their movement. When I'm studying all of these types of martial arts, that gives me more, let's say, more information that how can I know when to use this type of technique or this type of system of working with other players, and how to transfer between them. When I'm fighting a striker, I know how to deal with it. When I'm fighting with a grappler, I know how to deal with it. I know how to put myself in a better way against them, because I'm understanding what's happening in the fight.
That's really cool. And does that translate into teaching for you? Especially considering that some things like
Kaju
Kimbo is more traditional and MMA is more modern. And you mentioned that when you're doing it, you can merge different things together and learn from one how to do the other. But when you teach, is it the same? Like, are you able to merge the different philosophies or techniques into how you teach your students?
Of course, it's depending on the class and what's my goal of this class. For example, and we're standing one step backwards, that what's the goal of my class? What
really
are
cool.
the players coming here for? If they're coming for, let's say, for example, I want to learn how to defend myself. For example, it's for children, how can I work with bullying, for example? So my class should have a goal. What does my players need? And I need to succeed this goal. If they're only for self-defense, I need to work with them how to stand, the way of working, where can I hold the pressure points to take somebody down without using power. But if I'm, for example, the same players wants to join a tournament, let's say after 3-4 months, the type of training is different, because I need them to know the type of drills they need to use at a specific martial art, the way of taking a point, for example, or the way of winning, because now it's specific. We're working in a match that there is, for example, 5 minutes and it's gonna be done. But in self-defense, I don't know when the fight will be finished. They need to know how to keep, let's say, working within their little bit of power, for example. So the difference is about knowing what's the target from the player. Maybe there is some players come to martial arts for losing weight.
Yeah.
True.
So this is another type of training. It's not their goal to know how to fight. It's about having a lifestyle, for example.
Yeah. And speaking of lifestyle, you know, I know that there are parents who be like, you know, I don't want my kid to join a martial arts because they're afraid they're going to get hurt, right? So, ما بيتعود, ما بينطق. So as opposed to regular training, what does martial arts grow in a person that can make parents, bring their kids towards this kind of training as opposed to, just going to regular sports like soccer, football, basketball, all of that?
At my personal experience, I tried a lot of sports, even outside of martial arts. I always get injured from every sport I went into except martial arts. Because when you know that martial arts is dangerous, everybody knows that. And it's natural. It's something that will come with the, let's say, with the sport. That's why the safety is, let's say, it's doubled or tripled. Because we know it's dangerous, so we have better safeties. But when we're playing football, we don't think somebody's gonna get injured, but he gets injured. Even if you go to studies, you will see that football players get injuries more than MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Because, of course, more players, more matches than an MMA fighter maybe has 2 fights a year. So the same thing with self-defense. When you're afraid that my son maybe get injured, there is a lot, especially if they're kids. The safety is very high, and at the end, they're gonna be stronger. They're gonna get better. They're gonna be more flexible. They're gonna have to know how to work with pain. It's good for them. They're gonna know how to work with fear. Somebody's afraid from somebody holding him, afraid from fighting a huge guy. But when you're training with a huge guy and you're training with somebody holding you, slowly it's gonna be okay. Slowly you will know how to work with fear.
That's a really amazing point. And I love that you're able to address these different things based on like who's coming to you to train. Because I think a lot of people aren't aware, as you said, that because it's such a dangerous thing, there's a lot more safety involved. Like I personally would have loved to have been able to do some martial arts growing up. I loved watching them. I thought it was a really beautiful flow of movement, but I was a big scaredy cat. I was afraid of pain. I was afraid of getting hurt. Like even playing regular sports, I would always get injured. So I just thought I would get more injured with martial arts. But speaking of like the training and teaching, it can be very demanding, I guess, physically, emotionally, mentally. Can you think of any moments that really tested your patience or endurance?
Of course, what you said is everybody has fear, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay.
True, it is okay.
You're still human. And a person can't be fearless. And you can't even live without fear. If you're not afraid from being poor, you will never go to work and have extra money so you can put a good basic for yourself. Or if you're not afraid from being hungry, you will not buy extra food and keep it with you in the refrigerator so you can eat when you're hungry. So fear, let's say, equals to survival. It's okay to be afraid, but you need to have caution. Person can't be, let's say, can't be fearless, but need to be cautious.
Yeah, but
Okay.
not overly cautious either.
Not overly, on martial arts, yes, overly cautious.
Okay,
If you're
good to know.
fighting somebody, you need to be overly cautious. That's why in self-defense, very important thing about self-defense is awareness, because you don't want to be in a street fight.
True.
So it's better not being through this process. We're training as a self-defense, let's say martial artist, we're training for the black day that we wish will not come. So it's, if you're training and you never go into a fight, you already won, because that's what you don't want to happen. You're just getting ready for something that you wish will not come. So that's better than somebody that's not getting ready and something happens.
Yeah.
You're not in a good situation. And working with fear, that's very important. It's okay to be afraid. Let's say, for example, you're afraid from being hit. Everybody's afraid from being hit. But when you're coming to training, okay, and admitting that I'm afraid from being hit, hit me, let me feel it. Let me work with it, let me get hit and still can keep moving, keep going, keep working with my, let's say, my training or my progress. For example, if you're afraid from heights, take it to the maximum, go jump from a plane with a parachute, and then you will never be afraid from heights. You can go to rooftops.
Yeah.
Because if you're afraid from the ocean, learn how to swim, jump into the ocean. It's okay, you will survive it.
Yeah.
Because you stand for the fear and you're working with it. You're still afraid, but you're working with fear.
Yeah, and I honestly love how you emphasize the idea of working with fear, because I heard a podcast of George St. Pierre, which is considered by a lot of people to be one of the greatest martial artists. And he was talking about how never once he stepped into the ring without feeling fear. It was always there. And that guy is considered the best of all time. With that being said, we are going to go on a very quick break. We'll come right back after this one.
Welcome back from that short break. Abdullah, we were just discussing with you martial arts and also how fear is something you shouldn't be afraid of, but something you should use to carry on and actually go for things. If you're afraid of something, just do it. And that leads me to my next question. Do you have your own personal philosophy when it comes to martial arts? Is it about just facing your fear and confronting it?
For me, martial arts, the most, let's say, something I took from martial arts is relaxation. Because, for example, when we're training in a bad situation that could happen in the street, when you're down on the ground and 3-4 people are kicking you or trying to pin you down, that's a lot of pressure. Just by saying it, it's a lot of pressure. When you're working with this type of pressure and still trying to not freeze, not let fear control you. You're afraid, it's okay, keep working, defend yourself, try to stand up, try to, let's say, even if run away, you're still surviving, you want to go home safely. With this type of training, what can put more pressure? For example, if somebody called me and told me tomorrow you will have a presentation in front of the company's CEO, it will not give me the same pressure of being in a really bad situation, somebody fighting me with, of course, a training knife or something, or with a stick. That type of pressure, when you have it and knowing how to handle it, working with yourself, knowing what you need, knowing your limits, and knowing how to keep working with the fear, with the tension, with the pressure, with the stress, all of these things, and still keep moving, everything is going to be easy in life.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on the mentality, right, of fighting when it comes to martial arts. Because I believe, the physical part is something repetitive movements, but dealing with students in terms of mental is where the hard part is. So I do want to ask you about that. How do you approach your teaching philosophies when it comes to dealing with students who are new and beginners, as opposed to someone who's more professional inside?
Especially beginners, I would like to change the mentality from or the lifestyle when they're coming and, let's say, not understanding what we're gonna do and how are we gonna defend ourselves, and especially if what we're gonna do is actually gonna work in the street. That's a very big question. And we give examples and we try, and I give the new person coming the ability to attack me, and I defend myself, and he can see the mechanics, because that's how I came into this martial arts. When I tried my instructor and he told me that attack me and do whatever you want. You can hit me, you can hold me, you can pin me down, you can take me down, take a training knife and try to stab me. And I see the mechanics of how you're working without even being tired, because it's not a sport still. It's another type of martial arts, the sport type. But knowing the mechanics and how to use my pressure points, where I'm weak, where you can stand and you have better advantage, better, or let's say more muscles you can use against me and less muscles for me because of the place you're standing in, or the better structure for you, how you're standing. When I give this experience for a new player, and he will know that, okay, that's something real and something that I can benefit, and I would like to learn to do this so I can know how to defend myself, for example. Especially for me, when I'm training children, I would like, let's say, to let them know how to never give up. Even when at Kajikimbo, there is martial art, there is a belt test. At the end, after, for example, 3-4 months, I need to test you to have the next belt.
Yeah.
My major thing to do in this test is to break him. And what he should have to do is not give up. I will give you training exercises, hard exercises. I will let you fight more than one player at more than type of fighting, striking on the ground, grappling, even maybe 2 attacking you. Just don't give up. After this test, I want you still standing, and I'm gonna ask you, are you ready for another fight? You should tell me yes. So that's what I'm trying to change.
How do you deal with students who maybe might feel a bit overwhelmed by these kind of techniques? I feel like maybe if Abdullah was there and he was like, oh no, I got flipped, I got hurt, I don't want to do it again, how do you encourage them to keep going?
Of course, it's you're supposed to start, let's say, baby steps, slowly. Well, I don't know what's the experience you had. I think it wasn't.
I was just looking for the closest cheeseburger. So.
maybe. Yeah. But of course, everything should start slowly, especially when I'm transferring somebody from. I don't like to say normal lifestyle because it's not very normal just for not doing anything, for just sitting in home, and this is my normal lifestyle. You should go to the gym, you need to work at least 3 days a week. So from nothing, just sitting in home or a desk job and then returning home, just sitting with the friends, into a sport athlete in just one day, that's not possible and it's very hard to handle. So I would like to start slowly, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, it's okay. So you can at least take the way of changing in your life. Everything needs to start something new slowly. You can't just start a new company and want to have millions of, let's say, dollars in the first month. You need to start slow. Maybe you're gonna lose at the beginning and then slowly you can build yourself and stand on your legs.
Yeah. And I do want to ask you something, in terms of standing on your legs, because there's something in boxing and UFC and MMA that's called throwing them to the wolves. This is when a rising star climbs the ranks, but then they immediately puts them on a, championship fight. They rest them too fast. And I do want to ask you about something when things don't go as planned, when things just go wrong or go sideways. How did you deal with them? How do you, go back towards the good side of things, right? How did you make right of wrongs?
We're gonna stand or take a step backward about pressure, because it's all about pressure, what you said. When you're going to the wolves, as you said, or going to a very big championship, you will of course be under pressure, you will not sleep well, you're gonna need some support, let's say. But slowly you need to know that, okay, I'm feeling pressure, I need to work with it. It's okay to have pressure. You're still a human being. You're not supernatural. You're gonna come, you're gonna have fear. But what you should do, you should not show fear. Not show that you're under pressure. I'm okay. Are you afraid? Maybe, but I'm not gonna tell you. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start. Because winning is about, okay, let me say, if you don't have courage for losing, you will never win. You need to go there. Even if you're gonna lose the first time, second, third, at the end, you're better than somebody that doesn't even compete. You'll go and lose better than somebody that doesn't even go.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. It's okay. Just go for it.
No, that's a great point, because trying is the only thing you can do, whether you lose or not. That's like the biggest first step you can make. And I want to ask you, have you ever experienced any moment where you felt really intense pressure, but you were able to overcome it?
Of course, the pressure is there. Every tournament, every fight, even the session you're giving. For example, I give lectures about how to get instructors ready for instructing.
Oh, really? So you teach the instructors too?
The instructors
wow.
to be instructors. So when you know that they're coming, they're already instructors. They already know, or they already have experience. How can I give them something new? How can I tell them that my lecture is good? That's already, it's a tension. Before you come, it's already, you're under pressure. But when you go there, you never show it. Nobody knows. Come inside, have the, let's say, the courage, or be okay that you're gonna give something. You always have something that they don't know. And even white belts can teach me something. When I'm fighting, going to a new gym, and nobody knows that I'm an instructor, I'm just going there, I want to train with you. The white belt can tell me something that maybe I know, but he need to remind me. He need to tell me something. And this is actually the hardest belt to have in martial arts, is the white belt, is to start. The black belt will come eventually. When you start, slowly you're gonna do the same thing for a long time until you have the black belt. But the white belt, this is the beginning. This is the courage that you're coming from your comfort zone, from your home, and going to the gym and saying, let's start something new, a new era, wearing a white belt.
Yeah.
That's the hardest belt.
And speaking of, starting the journey, I want to ask you something as your role as an instructor. Like, what is something you've noticed with a lot of students that make them quit? Especially when it comes to young kids. The most common thing that make them turn around, and not pursue martial arts training anymore.
I think the answer is not having a goal.
Oh,
If you don't have a goal, for example, you reached a limit that you think that's okay. I'm stuck here. I'm not improving. Okay, it's okay after 1 year of, let's say, or maybe less, maybe 6 months, doing the same thing. Maybe you will see very big progress at the beginning because you're starting something new, and your body is conditioning for something new or adapting new moves, learning something new. And then you need to repeat this. I'm talking, of course, at the sports martial arts. It's all about repeating the same techniques until you master it. So you reach a level that I'm not getting progress or very little bit progress. I think that's it. That's why they stop. But when they have a goal, okay, there is a really big tournament, I want to go, I want to win, for example. So I need to keep moving until I take my goal. And after this goal, there is another goal. There is always something new. There is always something you need to take, you need to earn. So if you don't have a goal, there is nothing, let's say, pulling you out from your home to go to train.
That makes so much sense. So is that the advice you would give to young people just starting martial arts as well?
Yes, martial art, and even outside of martial arts. A company, a way of life, a job, even in school. If you don't have a goal, you will not achieve anything because you're not targeting something to achieve, actually.
This honestly reminds me, and I know people hate when I bring MMA stats, but that's because I watch a lot of MMA. There's a fighter called Charles Oliveira. He was considered very average for so many years. He was always winning and losing. And then all of a sudden he started winning, winning, winning until he got the belt. And then people asked him, what did change? He said, now I had a purpose, I had a goal. Before I was just, catching a paycheck. But now, once I actually have a goal, my training reflected that, right? He was training specifically for opponents, for styles. He was more focused, more goal oriented. And I think what Abdullah was trying to say is that even outside, I know I just used a fighting analogy, even outside, you got to have purpose, right? You got to have a goal to achieve what you want.
That's perfectly right. Indeed.
I think that's amazing. I think you also need to start your own separate thing, just as Abdullah's philosophy on martial arts and life itself, because mashallah, you've given us a lot of amazing wisdom today. I want to ask you quickly though, do you have a preference between the different martial arts that you do? Do you have a favorite, or do you just love them all?
I love them all because every martial art gives something. I tried a lot of martial arts, and there is no single martial art that didn't give me anything. Because, as we said, every martial arts has a specific thing to teach. Starting from any sports martial art, for example, boxing, it's only about punching. And then there is kickboxing. Now it's adding kicks with the boxing. And then there is, for example, Muay Thai. That's adding elbows and knees and some sweeps. Always going up until the MMA as sport. And then after you master MMA, there is something called, okay, 2 opponents. Okay, now the stance is different. The way of thinking is different. 3 opponents, it's different. Okay, let's get back to 1 opponent giving him a knife. All you learned, you need to have another system because the situation is different. The way of working is different. So that's why I don't have any martial art that doesn't give me something. Every martial art can give me something to learn.
That's honestly so amazing and very inspiring. And I want to thank you again for joining us today. I feel like we all learned a lot. And unfortunately, that's all we have for right now. And we're going to go on a short break. But I hope all of you guys got to understand all of Abdullah's philosophies about martial arts and life. And don't let fear get in the way. See you after the break.
And that was all from us of the team of the Untold. Another brilliant episode. I do love how Abdullah highlighted the mental aspects of fighting. We didn't go a lot of the physical kind of space because the mental aspect is very much more important.
So did I. I thought it was so interesting how he talked about how fear is something you shouldn't be afraid of,
Yeah.
which is kind of, I guess, like an oxymoron almost, because fear is fear.
It's fear.
Is something to be afraid of. And if you don't do it, you're never going to do anything in life. And I thought that was really beautiful.
It was, and something I didn't mention in the episode, and I'm going to take every opportunity to mention it. He did say that if you had fear of heights and fear of the ocean, go skydiving and go diving. I did both because I do have
really?
fear of both. So that's where, I kind of connected with Abdullah, and he says that, you have to face your fears wherever you go. And I love how that was kind of the central message of today's episode.
So do I. I mean, I'm also afraid of heights, but I don't think I'm ever going to go jump off of anything or skydive. I think it's too deep inside me. But I do appreciate that he's helping his students also in so many different forms, and he takes care depending on if they're beginner or not. And he seems to have such passion for the subject as well, and I think it translates in his teaching as well.
Yeah, very well put, Lujain. Very well said. With that being said, that's the end from us, the team of the Untold. Until the next episode, goodbye for now.
Goodbye.